All right, folks, we have a new and up and coming powerhouse of a gentleman that will be running for Congress in the Gilbert, Arizona area. And today I have him here, and we are putting him in the hot seat, asking the pertinent questions that are just for you. Before we get into the meat of the conversation, let me introduce to you Justin Poff. Justin, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, before we get into the meat of the conversation, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm a native born Arizonan, born and raised,
Okay.
a multi generational member of the working class. So hard work, integrity, taking pride in our work. That is who we are. That's where we come from. I decided I was going to run for Congress because I got tired of waiting for someone to come around and fix what's broken. So, with those working class values, I think I have a pretty good idea of how we're going to do it.
Fantastic to hear that. I know that we all are really thinking about how politics affects our lives. And when we have someone that's new with new, fresh ideas, we do need that spark, that new spark. And that's what you're bringing to the community, correct?
Absolutely.
Perfect. That being said, folks, let's get right into the heart of the matter. Let's get into the heart of the congressman, or soon to be congressman, also is Justin Pop. All right. I'm putting the car before the horse, but it's all good. Right.
Speak it into existence.
Speaking into existence, there we go. So you said that your campaign is rooted in working class values. Let's sway a little bit more about what you mean when you say that.
So working class values are basically doing what's right because it's right. It doesn't need any other elaboration beyond that.
Okay.
Integrity, a hard day's work, knowing the value of a hard day's work, and just doing what's right because it's right. Essentially, working class values are we roll up our sleeves. When there's a job that needs doing, we do it. We don't complain about it. We just wake up and we put one foot in front of the other day after day, doing what needs to be done.
All right. Tell me about a personal experience.
Okay. When my grandfather retired, he had been a mechanic for 40 years. I was pretty young at the time, so it was kind of a younger memory. But I remember vividly, specifically my dad being upset about this and telling me about how he had not gotten the pension that he was sworn he would get.
Wow.
And when he retired, instead of a pension, he got a gold watch. And my grandfather was never one to complain. Even in the light of something like that, he didn't complain one bit. We were all complaining for him. But he had a ranch with 13 acres where he raised horses, and he took my brother and his soccer player teammates all over the state, just never complained. I'm running because I don't want stories like his to be forgotten.
Sure.
So values of people like that are exactly what we need right now.
Absolutely. 100%. So when politics, sometimes we have a little bit of adverse to that word. So talking about the moment when you knew that the system wasn't just broken, but it was rigged.
Yeah, so again, going back to my childhood, growing up, my parents were both activists and they were trying very hard. We were just raised just outside of Wickenburg, Arizona, so rural Arizona. And they were trying very hard to live off the grid and,
Okay.
played by the rules, did things the right way, saved up some money, and we just never seemed to get ahead. And the older I got and the more aware I got of the world around me, began to realize that things were getting better for the people at the top and things were either staying the same or getting worse for those of us that were struggling.
Right.
And so I don't think there was ever any one moment. That's just a series of moments. When you grow up poor, there's a series of moments where you're reminded that the system is not designed for you,
Sure.
for you to succeed.
So how did all that this make your decision to run more very favorable for you?
Well, there was a personal connection. It started hitting close to home.
Really?
I've always paid attention to politics,
Sure.
but it started to directly affect the people in my life. Some of my friends, some of my family were directly impacted by this most recent spending bill, particularly the cuts to Medicaid and how that would affect people
Absolutely.
here locally.
Right.
And when that started to happen, and I realized we're getting to a point where they're not even being subtle about how they're picking on the lower class. They're just coming all at us, and they're not even hiding it anymore.
Sure.
I read up to 365,000 Arizonans could potentially lose their health care from this spending bill. And it's not just everyday Arizonans, it's particularly those that are most vulnerable. People on Medicaid tend to be, lower income or disabled or senior citizens or children. And if they lose their health care, it's not just devastating to them personally, it's devastating to the economy. It's devastating to those of us that have family members that work in healthcare. It's just all around. It's one of those things that almost feels cartoonishly villain.
So talk about what kind of effect you think that will have in the community.
Well, I think it can be devastating for the healthcare community in particular. obviously I mentioned the patients, but those that work in healthcare, included with the Medicaid cuts are special things that if you start to look into the fine print, they're raising the provider and the hospital taxes. That's the taxes the hospitals and the providers pay into Medicaid. So hospitals are going to be in a situation where they have less income because their patients don't have health care anymore.
Sure.
And if they come into the hospitals to get care, the hospital still has an obligation to provide that care out of pocket.
They do.
And at the same time, they're now paying a higher percentage into the system. So they're getting coming in and going.
Wow.
So it could be potentially devastating to the healthcare industry in particular.
So many candidates talk about economic justice. So what does that mean to the average person that's, say, making $15 an hour in the community?
Yeah, I think it means at this stage choosing between gas and groceries.
Okay.
I myself have lived paycheck to paycheck before, and I'm not that far removed from it. So it's a very fresh experience, very real experience for me. I've lived having to choose between paying rent or eating, and when we talk about economic justice, those two words get thrown around in the media a lot, but that's what it means to me, and it impacts a lot more people than we discuss it.
So you sound like you've had the opportunity to be actually in the trenches when it comes to having to pay rent or groceries. And this is not just political talk. This is actual you living the experience.
I did not experience this through social media or my Facebook feed. Yeah,
Okay.
there were very vivid times that I can remember, especially when I first went out on my own from living with my parents when I was 18, where I remember just not. I was doing the math in my head and realizing that there was more money going out than coming in, and I remember the panic and the anxiety
Sure. Yeah.
that set in as soon as that became a reality for me. And then even later on when I was a little bit older, now I'm doing a little bit better, but making a little bit more money, but the bills are going up too, and our payments and balancing all of that is hard enough on its own when you're, young and you're moving ahead in your career. But when things start changing economically from a policy standpoint to make the cost of living what it is today, not just inflation, but gas and groceries and all of those things that the healthcare has gotten more expensive.
Absolutely. Yes.
And wages have stagnated. In some respects, they've gone up a little bit, but the minimum wage hasn't moved since 2009. And that's a statement from the government that says, yeah, we understand your suffering, but there are more important things for us to worry about. So it's like usual, us working class got to roll up our sleeves and tell them, we're not asking. We're
Right.
telling you
Yeah.
that this is a problem and we need to fix it. So that's what that means to me.
Okay. So you've positioned yourself as this outsider.
Yes.
And when it comes to, say, politics and campaigning, what's the one thing that you quickly had to learn in running this?
Not just in politics, but in my career, I can't do everything by myself.
I like that.
Right out of the gate, yeah, I started digging into, obviously, I don't come from a political background. So reading into what the rules are when you want to establish a campaign and all that, that was one thing. But then talking about campaigning itself, hiring a campaign staff, setting up donations, collecting volunteers, putting a campaign charter. The more I started to do, the more I realized I wouldn't be effective at anything if I had to focus on everything. So bringing in some people that were passionate, that wanted to help, that wanted to be a part of this campaign, that wanted to contribute, and letting go and delegating some of these tasks away to some of these very passionate people has automatically transformed what we're trying to do and given it new blood and new energy.
I like that. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Well, my pleasure.
All right. So Justin, now let's get into a little bit heavier conversation. Let's talk about PPA, power, policy, and accountability. When we talk about overturning Citizens United,
Yes.
what's your strategy there to build momentum behind that and get support from others like you or think like you in this matter?
Yeah, that's as tough as it is, it's even more important that we do so.
Okay.
And my strategy is to build a coalition. The starting point is the voters. I think more people than not don't realize what Citizens United is. And it opened a floodgate of money from billionaires into Congress.
Sure did.
I call it legalized corruption.
Yeah.
And it allowed the billionaires to have a heavier voice in Washington. And
Yes.
the whole basis of a democracy is one person, one vote. Well, when one person can vote and give $270 million to the president, and I can only vote against it, that's not fair.
Sure.
So as far as strategy, we start by educating the people, educating the voters and building a coalition with those that are like-minded that already hold office.
Okay.
There are a lot of voices in Congress right now, just not enough. We need to make it politically toxic to support or to fight to keep Citizens United, because ultimately I believe if you are defending legalized corruption, you're on the wrong side of history.
Ooh, I like that.
So I know we're in for the long fight on this one. This is not something I can promise to get done right away. It's going to take some time. Well, I will say this. I would rather be in the ring swinging than sitting on the sideline wondering, what more can I do?
Okay, you just answered my next question, because I was going to ask, how are you going to defend yourself against those who are going to come hard and heavy against you in that particular train of thought?
Yeah, that's a fight I'm itching for, to be honest with you, because I'm well aware of how influential these billionaires are. The antidote for billionaire influence is grassroots movements.
Right.
Educating our voters that's step one. They need to understand why this is important, how it affects them. But when these big, powerful interests come knocking and saying, hey, we need you to shut up, I need to be able to say definitively, no, I'm not going to shut up, because I have an army of people behind me that are saying the same thing.
Sure.
That's the whole point of engaging the working class. We can't do it by just waiting for elected officials to figure this out. They haven't. It's been 15 years of Citizens United. Nothing's gotten better. In fact, I would argue that these billionaires and these people that are highly influential right now have had 15 years to work on their game plan. So that's quite a head start.
Absolutely. 100%.
So the only way to fight back effectively is to educate the voters, step one.
Okay.
Engage them, step two. Let them know what they need to do. Call your senators, call your representatives. That's great and all, but we need to lobby them and, again, make it politically toxic to defend it.
Right.
The only antidote for billionaire influence is the working class being unified and mobilized behind this goal.
Right.
So that becomes not just my mission, but, again, building a coalition of like-minded people and getting very loud about it.
Okay. Speaking of billionaires, you also support closing the tax loopholes for billionaires.
Yes.
So what's the one thing you can pinpoint that you totally haven't adversity to?
Yeah, the fact that it's legal. Because you said, for those that don't know, when it comes to money, those of us that work in jobs and receive a paycheck, that's one form of money. That's our income.
Right.
And it's taxed, justly, whatever. It's taxed at what it is. Billionaires also pay an income tax, but for the most part, their money moves into the stock market where it becomes capital. The tax loopholes are there, the earned interest credit, the capital gains tax. They're there to help the billionaires find these ways to pay a lower tax rate.
Right.
So billionaires are taxed at 37%. However, because of these earned interest and capital gains taxes, most of them pay around 20%. 20% is lower than your average teacher or firefighter. So when you ask me what is it, the one thing that really drives me nuts about this, it's the fact that what they're doing is completely legal. So in a democracy, if we have the majority that says, I don't care if it's legal, it's immoral, we can change it. So we've looked into what it would generate as far as revenue goes. It would generate billions of dollars a year in added revenue if they just paid what they were supposed to. Not even talking about raising taxes on them, just eliminating the loopholes and asking them to pay their fair share.
Sure. So that being said, if you had to rally some of the troops behind you and getting that message out, what would be some of the key message points?
Yeah, first of all, we got to be bold.
Okay.
I'm well aware of how challenging what is ahead of us is, and I am well aware that most people are feeling a little bit of despair right now, and it's very hard to rally people around a cause without some sort of hope. Well, anger is a pretty good motivator too, and I think we build a bold strategy. We don't just speak in platitudes. So a consistent message that says, it's only hard if we don't do anything. If we actually put one foot in front of the other, take one step after another, and raise our voices, really, again, organize as a working class, organize as a voting bloc, not just as working class Democrats or working class independents or working class conservatives. The working class umbrella covers all of us. There is a unifying message there, and Citizens United is negatively impacting everybody under that umbrella.
Well stated.
So when you talk about how do we fight this almost impossible fight, we bring everybody under that umbrella into the conversation and we say, get your gloves on, it's time to go fight.
Sure.
So it's not easy, but it is necessary.
So in your opinion, the numbers of the people or the numbers of the dollar is going to really push this here?
Numbers of the people.
Numbers of the people.
Yeah, when it comes to like our campaign, for example, we are not accepting any billionaire money. We're not accepting any PAC money. I don't even offer it. Every donation over $100 is publicly disclosed, but we're expecting people in our campaign to donate what they can. $5 here, $20 there.
Sure.
It's the numbers of the people that matter because donations are great. Your voice is louder. So if we organize and unify behind one or a unifying theme instead of one idea, but a unifying theme of what we need to support the working class, starting with overturning Citizens United, the number of people is far more important.
So you're saying that the voice of the people could be louder than the voice of the almighty dollar.
It has been in the past, and it will be again.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So talking about that in terms of campaign finance reform, I know that's also centralized to your campaign as well. So how do you plan to build coalition with other candidates and lawmakers that might not have the same urgency as you?
Yeah, that's a tough one because we've been fighting this fight as long as I've been alive and likely longer than that. And when it comes to campaigns finance reform, we're losing. That's what Citizens United that was a nail in the coffin for campaign finance reform. And the fact that it passed through the Supreme Court means that it needs an amendment to overturn it. And as split as our Congress is, getting an amendment, that's why we need the people, the numbers, because that's where the last line of defense ends when it comes to holding the powerful accountable. In our campaign, as I mentioned earlier, publicly disclosing any donation over $100 shows true transparency. I'm not just talking the talk, we're going to walk the walk. And I'm certainly not the first to have done this. In fact, the others that have are part of the inspiration behind it because I've seen it work.
Okay.
Some of those candidates that have built their entire campaign for their entire campaign over multiple elections, they're almost untouchable at this point because the amount of grassroots support they have. So when it comes to campaign finance reform, there is a viable alternative to accepting large donations from special interests.
Right.
We see it in Congress. Yeah. We see senators and representatives that don't take billionaire money, and they're almost untouchable when it comes to elections.
So you've criticized, and I hear you continue to criticize corporate influence.
Yes.
Right. So in terms of transparency in your own campaign, how are you going to keep that amongst the people?
We have an assigned person whose entire job in our campaign is to track every single expenditure, every single donation. And as I mentioned, any donation over 100 is publicly disclosed. And we let everyone know in the disclaimer on our website. The whole point is if we're going to be asking for other people to follow in our example, we have to set the example. So transparency means showing everybody, here's the books. Here are our donations. We expect most donations to be $20 to $30, but if anybody wants to make other donations higher than that, we're going to publicly disclose that so that people who are going to vote for us, who are even thinking of voting for us, can see where that influence is coming from. I've been critical of corporate influence because a lot of times it's not obvious.
Right.
They put their money in a political action committee, a PAC or a super PAC, and that money you can go find out where that money's coming from, but they wash it. It's almost like legalized laundering to get their influence across. Insurance companies are a big part of the reason why healthcare never changes, or if it does, it gets more favorable for them and less favorable for patients. Pharmaceutical companies are continuing to keep the prices of drugs really high and make it almost impossible to bring the price of drugs down. That's corporate interests. And my question is to those that accept corporate money, why? I get it. You get money in your campaign, but if a grassroots movement gets you money as well and you win your campaign, wouldn't you rather be beholden to voters than to corporations? The winds are changing, and those that are slow to catch up are going to be like the horse traders in the time of the car. Grassroots works. We're gonna prove it again.
That's awesome. I like that. So if elected, how would you approach committee assignments to advance your agenda?
Yeah, I've got to be realistic about this one. I'd be coming in as a first-time congressman. And as bold as I want to be on day one, I also have to temper that with a little realism. I would take whatever committee assignment they give me. I don't care if it's agricultural, oversight, education, whatever committee assignment is available to me, I would eagerly accept and then bring that working class voice into those committee assignments and just be loud and, identify with that working class and those values within those committees and ensure that everybody else involved in that committee at least has to hear me talk about it.
Fantastic, fantastic. So Justin, you're running as a
Progressive.
okay, and progressives have often had some struggles with swing voters. So that being said, what's your message on someone who's skeptical of big government, but also fed up with the status quo?
Yeah, look, I get it. I'm fed up too. That's why I'm doing this.
So you're doing this, right?
And I also understand that when it comes to progressives, sometimes our messages can leave a lot of people out.
Right.
We are a lot of times young, passionate, wing of the Democratic Party. And sometimes our ambitions come across a little naive. I totally understand that. However, what we're doing differently in this campaign is taking a progressive platform and molding it around working class values. It's not your typical progressive campaign. This is more about the values we represent than the label attached to it. And when it comes to being skeptical about politics, yeah, I totally understand that because I don't trust a lot of the people that are holding office right now as it is. And I think a lot of people feel that way when they tell you one thing out in public and do something else entirely in private.
Sure.
How can you not be skeptical,
Right.
right? So what I would say is that I am not a politician. I don't possess that polish or pedigree. The reason I'm doing this is because I recognize the need for a bold, courageous voice in Congress. And instead of waiting for somebody to come fill that role, I want to be that role.
Sure.
I want to fulfill that promise. And yeah, it might take me a little while to get there. This is all brand new to me, but I'm up for the fight.
So you've mentioned the word bold a few times in our conversation. Expound on that for us.
Bold is going to be the theme of this campaign. We are going to let every idea filter through whether or not it's bold enough. And without being too harshly critical of the party whose label I'm running under, the Democratic Party, if I could be critical of their approach over the last few years, it hasn't been bold enough. It has been very passive. At a lot of times, I think they've been overly pragmatic. I think they try to meet the Republicans halfway in good faith. From a pragmatism standpoint, that makes logical sense, but it's not working. We're losing our democratic values. We're losing our democracy as we speak. And when you look at the next generation of leaders, they've got to be bold. They can't come to the Capitol and say, we're here to work across the aisle on every issue. There's a huge difference between elected Republicans and Republican voters or independents that lean right. They're not being represented by their party any better than anybody else is.
Touché.
They are looking for a bolder vision. Donald Trump offered a sledgehammer to a broken system, and that was very attractive to a lot of people.
That was bold, yeah.
Unlike any other candidate, you can't say it wasn't bold.
Right.
He offered an alternative. However, he didn't offer a plan for what to do after he broke down the damn thing with his sledgehammer. What we've got to do differently is go, okay, we hear you, voters. We also want something different. This doesn't work for us any better than it works for you. So it's fun to be creative and start dreaming and envisioning what a better democracy looks like and say, we're going to build our campaign around that. Does it serve the working class? If the answer is no, we move on to the next idea. No questions asked. Is it bold? If the answer is no, then we move on to the next idea. If it's not bold in helping the working class, it's not worth discussing anymore.
Okay. So that being said, you're talking about empowering the people per se, right? So what's the one policy that you can get behind, that you can champion, that would improve the day-to-day lives of all your constituents?
So the answer is pretty obvious, but it's also a little complicated. To me, the answer is universal health care.
Okay.
A lot of people think this is more complicated than it actually is. And the number one opponent of universal health care happens to be insurance companies. And they have put this dialogue out there that it's too expensive. People can't afford it. It'll never work. They point to other countries and they go, see, they can't make it work. When in reality, they've figured out how to make it work. No system is without its flaws.
Sure.
But let's build a better system and then work on fixing the flaws. When it comes to universal health care, it helps everybody, not just the working class. It's a no-brainer. But not only is it a no-brainer, it's necessary right now. There are people that badly need a healthcare system that works for them and not the other way around. The average cost per year that we are already paying into our current healthcare system is just under $5 trillion annually as a country.
Wow.
So the last time we got a bill in front of Congress to try and shift towards universal health care, The price tag on that was 3.5 trillion. They said it was too expensive. If we're already spending $5 trillion and we have an alternative that's 1.5 trillion cheaper, we can clearly afford it.
Right.
So it's not that we can't afford it. It's that the people that hold power don't want it. It's not beneficial to them. It's not profitable to them. But studies from the EPI have shown that if we were to switch to that model, it would be better economically as well. It would improve and increase the amount of jobs in the healthcare industry, make them better paying jobs as well. A lot of people who are critical will say, well, Mr. Poff, if you're Mr. Working Class and you care about all the workers, what about all the insurance workers?
Sure.
And the reality is we've done this with other industries. When we had to start moving away from the coal industry, there was a very valid concern that there'd be a lot of people without work. And the government came up with programs to train them, give them guaranteed job placement, and you can help them transition from one industry to the next. And if we move into universal healthcare, and there are all these extra jobs that open up in universal healthcare, you've got a direct line of how to retrain people, get them a better paying job, a job that contributes more to their community, and people get better care.
Fantastic.
It's a no-brainer. It just needs to happen.
We definitely sound passionate about that.
Absolutely.
So that passion and the authenticity. So how do you not come across sounding like just another politician?
The key is not to speak in sound bites. If I were to be critical of some of the others, that I won't name names out of respect, but I listen to a lot of these political interviews and you can see the authenticity versus the people that speak in platitudes.
Sure.
And they say things like, well, the Democratic Party needs to work on messaging, or the Democratic Party needs to learn how to copy these other winning strategies. No, the Democratic Party has to offer real solutions. And I'm not going to wait for someone else to do that. We're going to work as a campaign. I got a lot of brilliant people working next to me. A lot of people that know even more about this stuff than I do that are helping us not just frame the messaging, build a actual policy that encapsulates the vision that we have for this country, the democracy that it could be.
Sure.
But it can't be right now. It needs to change. So authenticity to me is having a plan and then being accountable to your voters to ensure that that plan's being followed, that you're doing exactly what you told them you were going to do. And if things change down the road, that you're transparent with them about that too. It's about the message and not the messenger. We stay beholden to that message.
I like that. So now I'm going to get on a really touchy subject here.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about reproductive rights, Social Security. And that question from there is, what's your plan to protect those issues with this severely divided Congress that we have right now?
Well, similar to Citizens United, Roe v. Wade is going to require an awful lot of work to, it's been decided on. It's been overturned.
It's been overturned.
We have to codify it.
Yep.
And I think when they first overturned it, they did so, it had something like a 66% disapproval rate, the decision the Supreme Court was making. Anytime elected parties, or I guess in their cases appointed parties, but members of our government, branches of our government are making decisions on policy, and the voters are telling you 2/3, we don't like this.
Sure.
Then that also tells me that 2/3 of the people are already on board. And that's what we need we need representation like that in Congress to protect it. But it's essential. We are currently living in a time, and if anybody watching this, if you have women in your life, ask them, how did you feel when that announcement came down that it was overturned? Probably felt like less than a man, that you have less rights than a man. And in the year 2025, it's hard to believe that that's a reality that we have to grapple with. And I look at that, and we're going to come back to the word bold here. When it's difficult to overturn something, that does not mean it's impossible. You have to have bold vision. So if our goal is codifying Roe, then that's the goal. We come up with the plan on how to achieve it. That's what our opposition's done for the last 45 years. They've had a bold goal. They took it one step at a time. They were willing to take their time to get what they needed. But one step at a time, they achieved their goals, unfortunately for a lot of us.
Sure.
But we have to recognize that that is a working strategy, that you can be bold and build a plan on how to achieve it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that answer regarding reproductive rights. Now, talk to us about Social Security.
Yes. So Social Security is one of those things that no one's been able to do much with in a long time, at least in my lifetime. To me, these solutions sitting right in front of our face. For those that don't know, there's an income cap on Social Security that caps it at $144,000 a year. Now I'll explain that. What that means is if you are Elon Musk, or you're someone like myself who does not make $144,000 a year, you're paying the same amount into Social Security.
Mhm.
You eliminate that income cap, and then Elon Musk is paying a proportionate amount of his income into Social Security. Now, just looking through some numbers, I wanted to know how much more would this program generate annually if we just eliminated that income cap, just got rid of it altogether, out of creativity's sake, out of the sake of being bold, right?
Right. Enlighten us.
Over $1 trillion a year annually is a program, which allows you to do something that is badly needed right now, which is increasing the benefit payouts for senior citizens. I have people in my family that are senior citizens collecting Social Security, and it doesn't even cover the rent.
Mm.
So people in their 70s are having to go out and get part-time jobs. They can't get full-time jobs because then they can't get the full benefits of the Social Security.
Right.
So our grandparents, in some cases our parents, are in the years they were supposed to be retired, they're working. And as they're doing that, they're hurting. And it puts us in my generation and the generations nearest me in a position where we're in a squeeze, where we have to help take care of our parents and we have to help raise our children.
Yep.
So
True.
when we talk about eliminating the income cap on Social Security and raising the benefits for the senior citizens, that has a cascading effect. It gives more money to our generation to help raise our children and give them a better upbringing. So it helps every generation. It's the fairest approach, in my opinion. And it also does something that my generation grew up not thinking Social Security would be there when we were old enough to collect.
Right.
We've been raised with that drilled into our minds. You eliminate the income cap and it's indefinitely solvent. So the program, which has been the largest social success program in the history, or this largest social program success story in the history of the United States, we make it solvent indefinitely.
So that one thing,
That one thing.
problem eliminated.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I would love to hear the opposition to that.
I'm sure you guys have the opportunity to debate that.
Yes.
That's how there's like,
Look forward to it.
So messaging matters, as you said earlier. Bold, the message, the heart, getting to the heart of the people. That being said, what's one slogan that just did not resonate with you that you totally retired? And also, what did you replace it with?
Yeah, we started with some stuff that sounded a little too, I said platitudes earlier.
Sure.
We started with some platitudes, that we were going to be working class progressives. Well, that is what we are. It doesn't grab your attention,
Right.
and while it's authentic, it's boring. We wanted to make the government work for the working class. We like that too. That's not bad. But then we started thinking bigger, bigger than the campaign, bigger than a candidate, the message, not the messenger. That became our rallying cry. I'm a first-time candidate. It's a long shot in the district I'm in that I'm going to win, but I'm going to give it my best shot. But even if I don't make it to the finish line, we want to build a movement here that extends beyond the campaign. We want to bring the attention to the message, not the messenger.
Absolutely.
Then it can spread like wildfire. And what I'm really hoping happens is that instead of having little platitudes and things like that, by centering everything we do around the message and not the messenger, that other people who might not have that spark ignite yet, that might not ever consider themselves running for office or being politically involved or volunteering for a campaign, we want to see those people brought into the movement, which is much more important than the campaign.
Love that. Love that. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Okay, Justin, let's do another shift. Let's talk about leadership and movement building. So you obviously have a grassroots team that you have formed. And so what's the one thing you've done to make sure that the volunteers are very much so empowered, not just feeling like they've been used for canvassing?
Yeah. Leadership's a passion of mine. For those that don't know, we've met before. We've discussed the leadership for quite a while. In fact, I've learned a tremendous amount from you. So thank you for that. Leadership is a passion of mine. It, to me, means motivating and inspiring others to a goal and helping them become the best versions of themselves. I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. So anybody that joins this campaign on day one, they get a campaign charter for their role. Now, a lot of them are coming in at entry level. They want to be a canvasser, they want to be an outreach ambassador, and this is the heartbeat of the campaign. And we can't have too many of those people. But once they're involved with the campaign and they see the campaign charter and the other roles available, there's room for them to grow within the campaign. This speaks to what I was saying earlier, to wanting to ignite the spark inside of people.
Right.
When we meet and we have strategy sessions and discussions about how we're going to, engage a group of people, whether we're at a farmer's market or if we're going to a rally or a protest or something like that, we have a group discussion. And I advise everybody in that group, if you've got a good idea, speak up. I don't care if you're a 17-year-old volunteer that wants to go get signatures outside your local Fry's, or if you're somebody that's been in several campaigns and knows all the ropes.
Same path.
If you have a good idea, don't keep it to yourself, because it's about the message. If you have a way to improve the message, we all want to hear it. Me especially.
So that being said, roles, responsibilities, how are you defining that amongst volunteers as well?
Yeah, so we're starting by trying to pull people into the engagement side of things. So we need signatures. That's just part of running a campaign. We're at a stage where we're going to be accepting donations soon, engaging with people directly. But it also means giving them, a set of expectations as far as what this campaign's about, what we want to focus our conversations about, but also giving them room to put their own flavor on it and say, this is why this issue is important to me. So we want to make sure that whatever they're doing within the campaign, they have a clear understanding of what that is and what success looks like in that role. But also, we want them to bring the passion that brought them to volunteer with us in the first place into the campaign. So we encourage everybody, regardless of what role you're in, when you're engaging with people, connect why these things are important to you.
Sure.
Because you're sitting there talking to them. I might not be. They might see a video of mine on Instagram or something like that, and that's great. We want to engage people where they are. But if you're the person face to face with another person trying to convince them about why this message is important, you need to personalize it and let them know maybe some of your own personal stories. So we give ownership to the volunteers within this campaign to make this message their own.
Okay. So how is that in your mind? How will that prevent burnout, confusion, and or diluting your message?
I'm glad you brought that up. If you were to go on our website and look at the volunteer page, the second paragraph on that volunteer page is we let them know up front, you're here on a volunteer basis. We do not want you missing family events, your daughter's recital or your son's soccer game.
That's good.
We do not want you missing that to attend. We'll always have more events for you to attend. We want to make room for people's lives. We don't want you sacrificing too much for this. This campaign's important, don't get me wrong. We're a grassroots. We expect to expand and have a lot of members of this campaign. So don't miss out on your family events. Don't miss out on rest and recovery. It's hot right now. It's 118 the other day. So
it was
we're being very considerate of that too. My campaign manager and I were talking just the other day about doing an event this weekend, and honestly, it's just too hot, and we don't want to put our volunteers through that. We want to be aware of their experience as well. Getting the message out is important, but there are ways to do it without burning ourselves out.
Absolutely, I like that. When we were talking the other day, you said this is bigger than you.
Yeah.
It's bigger than you. How do we take this beyond, say, election day? How do we keep this movement progressing and moving forward?
Yeah, obviously the focus is on winning an election, but to answer your question directly, there is so much more that we can do than being elected.
Okay.
So we talk about these issues, Citizens United, Social Security, reproductive rights, all of these issues that are directly impact the healthcare industry, universal healthcare. If we don't win, we still need to fix these things. The problems don't go away. So there are other ways of engaging with people, educating people, bringing them in and personalizing why this is important. So explaining it in a way that is easy to understand, explaining how it impacts their lives, and most importantly, what they can do about it. That allows people to stay engaged beyond just a political campaign. If we don't do that, we're waiting for someone else to come along and do that, and that kind of defeats the purpose of running in the first place.
Okay, all right. We all make mistakes at times during the campaign. If you had to pinpoint one mistake that you've made and how you course correct it, what would that be?
That's pretty easy. When this campaign first started, I was trying to do everything. I was trying to take it all on myself. That's one of the things that overlaps from being in the working class. A lot of times a problem seems like it's big, but we can handle it all on our own, and we end up burning ourselves to the ground trying to do it.
Sure.
The importance of delegation cannot be overstated. You bring these talented people into the campaign. You explain what it is the campaign's trying to accomplish. You explain what the goals are for the campaign in the short term and in the long term. And then you delegate these tasks to those people and you let them take ownership of it. Are they going to be perfect at it? No. I'm just like I'm not going to be perfect at campaign.
So you're saying as a leader, you can't do everything?
You cannot do everything.
I mean, you actually really need other people?
You need them. No one's ever won an election on their own. You know, it takes canvassers, it takes people making donations, volunteers to the campaign, it takes voters, it takes consistent effort. And if
Sure.
you try to do it on your own, you're going to end up in last place.
Sure, absolutely. With that being said, if you don't win, how do you plan to stay engaged and keep things moving?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, back up a little bit. When I made the decision to run, there was about 60 seconds of sheer terror that I felt.
I can imagine.
Because I'm a private citizen. I've lived a private life. I've have a private career.
That's awful.
And now it's all out in the open. And people are free to criticize my opinions like they never have before. It's terrifying. After that wave of terror washed over me, I felt a feeling I've never felt before. I felt connected to a passion I don't think I've ever felt in my life. I felt that what is important to me as a human being, my true self, was finally coming into alignment with my goals. And I'm not talking about winning an election. It was when I realized I could put my energy and effort into fighting back. My whole life I've been a fighter. And it was usually for nowhere near as great righteous reasons as we're trying to accomplish now. It's an energy I've always carried with me everywhere I go. Sometimes it gets me into a little trouble, with bosses that want to tell me something and I want to, show them a better way or whatever. Being a fighter is important in this campaign, but in this movement, it's even more important because any fighter knows you get knocked down, you got to get back up.
Absolutely.
So if we don't win and we have to keep going, there are other ways to do this, that we meet people where they're at. Social media engagement. We'll go on podcasts. We'll do interviews like this, but we'll do it with a variety of people. We'll test this message against all the opposition out there.
I like it.
Because I am confident it will endure.
I like it. One last thing. Right into that camera and tell people something that that they need to hear about you.
Well, I've never backed down from a fight in my life. And I, like many of you, thought that this fight's too big to even, I felt the despair. We cannot give in to despair. They're winning right now. The wealthy people, the corporate interests, the billionaires, they have the upper hand. They're winning. As I just mentioned, the moment I decided to join this fight, I felt a fire light inside me. And if you join the fight, I'm confident you're going to feel that same fire. You're going to feel your passions align with your energy and your efforts. But it's going to take all of us. So I'm happy to lead the charge, but I fully expect this to be a group effort. We don't win if it's not.
Absolutely. Folks, thank you very much. I'm Granison Shines. I'm here with
Justin Poff.
Justin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Granison.
Appreciate your time.
You too. Thank you.